So, good morning. I believe it's second of November, something about that. Wednesday. You can look it up yourself. I don't even I don't keep track of what the date is necessarily. Okay, anyway, first thing I'd like to start off with saying, there's a lot of things I want to talk about, and one is I mentioned on one, I guess it was on Monday, I mentioned something about the crown of Catherine the Great, and somehow it came into the hands of Queen Elizabeth, or the royal family, I guess I would say. And I didn't have any. I'd like to have had pictures of it, photos or something, but there is no photos, of course, of Catherine the Great. They didn't have cameras back in the 1500s, but you can find a photo of Queen Elizabeth wearing that crown, and then you'll find a painting of or at least sketches, I believe, I don't know, of Catherine the Great wearing that crown, the same crown that the British now have. But you might want to instead ask, now that it's Prince Charles in charge, I don't know if he's going to show his family jewels. You know, there are people that have seen Prince Andrew's family jewels. You know, if you talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, you can't ask what's his name, Jeffrey Epstein yet, but right now. But there are probably some people around that have seen Prince Andrew's family jewels. So, you know, you might want to look that one up. I don't really want to see his family jewels, but you might want to. So, you know, anyhow, get back onto the news here. There seems to be some sort of a problem between Saudi Arabia and Iran right now. People like to look at me when I'm talking to this thing. There seems to be a problem, but I'm not quite exactly sure what it is. I even wrote this stuff down today because I have so much to cover that I hope I can do this all in a very timely manner. Got studies to do. So it says here, Saudi Arabia believes that Iran might attack targets in Saudi Arabia and in Iraq. There's a place called Erbil where the U.S. troops are stationed. And of course this would be not against the United States, because then you could get a very hefty retaliation, but against the Kurds, which the U.S. supports, that somehow are against the Iranians. Anyway. But I think it's the Iran would be attacking because of the involvement of the United States in these protests in Iran. You know, because I think some woman supposedly, I believe, was killed because she wasn't wearing some headscarf, you know, so all kinds of violence going on. And as you know, the United States are the masters of taking some little issue like that and creating a big problem. They use, of course, social media and you know, Facebook and Twitter and, you know, probably YouTube as well. I don't know. I like YouTube, but anyway, they're using social media accounts to stir up problems and cause riots in countries and hopefully overthrow the governments. You know, they're masters at that. Of course, Belarus knows that very well, and there are a lot of people in Belarus, which I know is a fact, that get paid, you know, good sums of money. They don't even have jobs, but they got nice apartments and good cars and plenty of money, and they don't even have a job, you know. So and Lukashenko was mentioning that. How do they get all this money? And of course they're all anti, you know, government. So you'd think that if you're living in a country and you're living very well without even having to work, you would love the government. Then you'd have to ask yourself, well, how come they don't? So anyway, it all stands to reason. You know that yourself. And another part of the news is Serbia was told by Germany that they have to decide between Russia and the EU, which of course is led by Germany. And of course it was an unnamed official that said that. Obviously it's coming out from Ursula van der Crazy, if I use Alex Christophero's name for Ursula van der, I don't even know her name, van der Linden. Anyway, she's probably just more than crazy. I don't know. It makes you wonder how people get that way. She's a totally embittered woman. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she doesn't get something that she needs. I don't know, find out, talk to her husband or something. But anyway, what else do I have to say here about that? It's all, done through German, of course. So Belgrade must sanction Russia for their involvement in Ukraine. Which I don't know. That's it's like saying, if you're not with us, you're against us, I guess. What does it say? You're either with us. If you are not, you are against us. And there is no neutrality. Isn't that strange? You must sanction Russia. So I guess that means you can't take Russian gas. You have to become poor, and your people have to suffer. You have to have protests in the streets and have your people freezing. Reminds me of that joke again that Putin told, which I pretty much screwed up, but you'd have to watch that Valdai conference to find out what he really said, because I'll screw it up again if I try to repeat it. Anyway, I don't even know how Putin remembered. I guess maybe it's somehow to do with the language. And Elon Musk, for these, I don't have Twitter. I don't really understand how this works, but I guess if you're some of these bigger users, he's I guess proposing an $8 or around $8. I guess it depends on what your currency rate is and compared to the US dollar, but an $8 fee per month to get this blue check mark and on your account. I like I said, I don't know how this works. And then maybe you don't get a blue check mark. I don't know how you can contribute. Maybe you get some special privileges and your tweets have more value when you get this blue check mark, which otherwise was reserved for certain other people. And I guess for your content, you can be rewarded just like in YouTube. And I guess YouTube is you have to be pretty good, which I'm not. Then you get some good rewards. Everyone knows how great I am on YouTube, but I'm just kidding. I don't have a good joke for that one. Just don't have so many followers. But anyway, doesn't bother me at all. But anyway, and talking about payment systems, there's a whole revolution going on about different payment systems. Russia has this card system called Mir, and I guess that's based on some sort of a interbanking system that they started called the SPFS, started in 2014, and I guess that was a result of sanctions imposed upon them, based, on the Ukraine crisis, even though at that time there wasn't any kind of military conflict going on. But as you know, the West says, we want Ukraine to use against you to defeat you in the near future, and if you are not going along with that, then we'll start some sanctions right now. As you know, you have to, if you've been following all the news for many, many years and become an old guy like me, I'm 23, just like Jackson Hinkle, he's 23 now too. I'll mention Jackson Hinkle a little bit later. I might be a lot more younger looking and a lot more pretty than Jackson Hinkle, but you can't have everything. So, of course, I hope you know I'm kidding. But anyway, with this new system, the Mir system, I believe that was for all users, to bypass this SWIFT system. So if you can buy something maybe online or whatever, and it used to be that it was transferred through SWIFT, and if you're in Russia or Russian or whatever like that, it was all cut off. And they use it with any country that they don't like. If you don't like how they do things and don't do what they say, as you know, how this domination is getting more and more in the West, and you have this multipolar world coming up, which seems to be a great thing, and most everybody realizes that, where you have, actually, it's more for freedom, and the system in the West is slowly closing in on your freedom and getting rid of freedom, so you don't have freedom. And as you know, this is part of this, like things such as coming in the future, like social credit scores. If you don't believe what we believe, you don't support the parties we believe, and you don't support information, what we call true and what we call false, then you're going to get some sanctions against you. They'll cut your and they want to do the World Economic Forum have what do they say, computer chips put in, they turn your chip off. This is a terrible world. Oh, look at this little kitty here. Beautiful, nice kitty. See if I can show it to you. Probably gonna run from me. Can I get closer? You gonna let me get closer? Oh no, you don't like it? See? Я не говорю по-русски. YouTube. Спасибо. Oh, the kitty ran from him. Guess it doesn't like Russian-speaking people. So anyhow, the weaponizing this SWIFT system is just one part, but the West, as you know, has been weaponizing everything, absolutely everything, against Russia and of course this country as well, Belarus. So I even made a list here of a lot of things that they weaponize, like shipping and insurance, all kinds of insurance, including insurance for shipping, any sort of insurance, trade, banking, finance, sports, music, and all the arts and culture. And then the West says that Russia has weaponized gas and oil. But actually, who weaponized gas and oil? It's all part of the SWIFT system, where it's how do I wrote it down here so make it even easier. It's imposing sanctions, mostly all in the petroleum products, and it's not just oil and gas. It's, say, anything made from petroleum. I know petroleum jelly, like Vaseline or something like that. Anything like that coming out of Russia, and not just petroleum products. There's a lot of other things. Everything virtually is sanctioned against Russia. So any kind of look at grain. Russia shipped grain, even though the agreement on this grain deal was that Russia can ship grain and fertilizers, and yet these ships leave and they, I don't know what, they refuel or do something in European ports, and they're all held there. They're all blocked. They're not allowed to go to Africa. So there's these ships filled with grain, and they're just stuck in the ports and not allowed to go anywhere. You can imagine that all the people that work on those boats, of course, I don't know if you have to pay them or not, if they're not getting paid. Of course, if you're not making any money, how do you get paid? Maybe these people that work on these boats already went home, so these boats are just sitting there locked up in a harbor filled with grain, and it's rotting in the ships. Can't get to Africa. Oh, that's a great thing, isn't it? But they care about the poor people in the poor countries. And of course, you can't get fertilizer to these African countries that Russia was sending, fertilizer to. So they can't grow grain necessarily if they're not getting their fertilizer. So anyway, what Russia did, what they're saying that Russia weaponized it because, Russia cannot get any money now. Russia, instead, they came up with a different payment system, as you know, and these Western countries can still pay in euros and dollars. It's not that you're paying really in rubles, however, but you pay in your, whatever the currency is, euros or dollars, so you pay it into the Gazprom bank, and the Gazprom bank converts them into rubles. So these countries say, we're not going to pay because we're not going to pay in rubles. They're not paying in rubles, they're paying in their own currencies anyway. But it's all just a matter of perception. And as you know, politics and everything virtually in the West is based on perception. Politics is based on perception anyway. How do you perceive somebody? That's why they lie to you, and they get up there and say how much they love humanity and they love people and they love equality and they love diversity, when in fact they don't. They don't at all. Words and actions are two different things. They can talk the talk, but they can't walk the talk. So it's all just talk, as you know. So anyway, I wrote all that stuff down. And as far as this expansion of the fair payment systems, it's now been proposed, I guess, by the Prime Minister of Russia, not the President. And I don't know really how to say his name. But anyway, the Prime Minister of Russia was proposing that they're going to have hopefully, depending on what the agreement is amongst these other countries, in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to create a new system of payments. So whenever there's like sanctions being imposed upon some country for supporting Russia or whatever reason, then these people can at least still transfer money amongst each other. And that will, of course, that's more problems for the West and their domination of everything, absolutely everything, military, finance. They want to dominate everything, and that's a big thing is finance. That's how the U.S. gets a lot of their money, because they don't create as much as they used to in the past, and a lot of their money is coming in through Wall Street and controlling financial systems. So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot, but as they do with everything else. But well, what they're going to do about that is another thing. That's going to, possibly war, possibly just biological attacks. I'll get into that later. This is going to be a kind of a long one here. So now we're going to free speech. So it's now become official that anybody that says that Putin is not responsible for the world food crisis is virtually disseminating misinformation. And disinformation, misinformation, there's a difference, but I don't know what it is. That means that it's going to be possible very soon that you'll get censored on YouTube. So I can't say that it's disinformation, because Putin is doing it all. Putin's supposed to be responsible for everything, and it's also against the law in Poland, as Ania K had once mentioned. You get censored if you deny that Putin is, how do I say this, is not the one that's causing inflation. So Putin causes inflation. He's the guy responsible for inflation. So look at this. I have a spectator over here. He followed me and he's watching me. See? He's suspicious. Oh. He didn't know what this was, so I guess he decided it's safer to take off. Fear of the unknown. So that's what that's all about. That's, I guess, maybe how the countries all work as well. Why everybody's afraid of each other. That Russia's going to attack somehow. I don't know. So anyway, Ania K, I should mention her site. It's called, or her channel. It's called Through the Eyes Of. So that's always good to listen to. At least it is for me, because I'm in a neighboring country here, Belarus, and that the news from Poland, of course, can have a very profound effect on my life over here in Belarus. Everybody's talking about this leadership in Poland. I remember Scott Ritter was saying that he thinks that they're even more crazy in Poland, the leadership, than even Ukraine. I think maybe he means that N-word Nazis. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say Nazis on YouTube. Might get censored. I notice some people don't like to say that. Did I say that? Did I say Nazi? Oh, no. So, but there's another very important thing that I saw, and it was presented by Jackson Hinkle, and it's also very true. On his site is The Dive. It's probably better to watch that on Rumble, because he can put out more on Rumble than he can on YouTube, apparently, because he's had strikes against him and doesn't want to be kicked off YouTube. But he's demonetized. He doesn't earn anything from YouTube anyway. But he was talking about this. There's a relationship normally always between, like, say, South Korea and Japan and the West. Like, technically speaking, they're Western countries because they side with the West on all geopolitical angles, or on economics. But that might be changing, at least with Japan, as far as Japan is concerned, because they realize that much of their economic prosperity has to do with Russia, the cheap energy, and so now economically they're turning more towards Russia than they are towards the West. And Jackson Hinkle was saying it would be kind of interesting if you see that, like in a G20 meeting, he said G7, but I don't think Russia is in the G7. But he said, but anyway, but if you see them sitting at the table, you know, Japan leader sitting at the table with Russia on one side and China on the other, that would be quite interesting, of course. So they're beginning to stop the sanctions against Russia, the Japanese. And I'm sure that that's going to tickle the hearts of those in the United States and Ursula von der Crazy and all that sort of thing. But another thing I was wanting to get to is if you look at the West, they've been steadily saying that Russia is losing in Ukraine and Putin is desperate. So, and that's, I guess, why the U.S. has sent the 101st Airborne, because Russia's losing. You know, they're stationed in Romania now. And I think Scott Ritter was saying that he believes, I think, that they would be going up to Transnistria, but I disagree. You know, and if I talk with Scott Ritter, he probably would say I might be right, because what I learned, and in my days in the 1980s, and I'm sure he's learned it too, but maybe, you know, maybe he's forgotten. Normally I'm the one forgetting, not Scott Ritter. He's normally a lot more sharp on this stuff than I am. I don't even know how he remembers all of this stuff. But one thing I remember is that the U.S. had always wanted, and I've mentioned this in other videos, that the U.S. has always wanted to kick Russia out of the Crimea. Even though technically speaking, the Crimea has always belonged to Russia, even when it was attached to Ukraine, starting in 1954 from Khrushchev, it still belonged to Russia. If you look at a history book of Ukraine, there's virtually nothing in it about the Crimea, because the Crimea has virtually always been Russian, and they're Russian people. But the U.S. has wanted to kick Russia out of the Crimea. But in this case, the Russia now, probably, I mean, the United States now realizes that just kicking Russia out of the Crimea is not really enough. They want the Crimea. So these troops, the 101st Airborne, you know, which is airborne infantry, you know, normally based in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. You know, I had a friend, of course, he was formerly in the 101st Airborne. But anyway, I believe that if anything, they're going to be possibly used for Crimea, even though it's kind of a difficult jump to get from Romania to Crimea. It's still possible. You never know. And also, the United States is sending a battle group, a naval battle group, as you know, Gerald Ford aircraft carrier with ships to that theater. And they've steadily been increasing their forces in the Balkans and in Poland. As you know, there's now probably a permanent military base in Poland, right on the border there with Ukraine. And they say that the United States has around 100,000 troops now surrounding that Russia theater there between Ukraine. But I'll tell you what, it's a lot more than that, because there's a lot of troops that the United States has even in Crimea. I mean, in Ukraine right now, but they're not acknowledging it. What's going on here? But anyway, some crazy noise there. I hope I didn't do anything. They say there's 100,000 troops surrounding this military operation, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot more there, because there's troops in, and now it's been admitted at least, but they don't tell you what kind of troops the United States has in Ukraine. But as I've been saying from the very beginning, and you even hear people like Scott Ritter and Colonel MacArthur, Douglas MacArthur, also saying that obviously there are troops in Ukraine, because you can't train these people to operate these HIMARS and in like 1 month. And there's even been, I guess, YouTube videos of U.S. soldiers And I think one of them is called We Are Already Here. I mentioned that. And they show themselves apparently in Ukraine, but in part of that there was snow on the ground, so that was probably done even a year ago. And they have troops there. I remember during my time when I was in the military, during Desert Storm and all, there were soldiers from my unit. I was in the 8th Infantry Division, but in a military intelligence battalion, and we had people deep into Iraq long before the war started. And they were storming bunkers and everything, but most of the Iraqis were putting, white flags up and had their hands in the air, but they were deep into Iraq long before it was ever announced that we were going into Iraq. So that's how that works, So anytime you hear of any kind of a conflict, most of the time we already have soldiers in there when it looks like we're contemplating on sending soldiers there. Trust me about that one. And I'm sure that other military people like Douglas MacArthur and Scott Ritter will also admit that. They know the truth. They know how it works. And but anyway, you see that the Putin is getting desperate, and that's why the U.S. is sending all these troops over there. So, and Russia is losing. Yeah. So what else do we have to say here? Yeah, mostly about the amount of troops, and I'll tell you what I project that there will be as a minimum. Did I say U.S.? I sort of think that surrounding this conflict, the U.S. will have in the area of 500,000 U.S. troops by the 1st of December, if not even more. And that doesn't count NATO troops. And Poland, as you know, Stephen Scott Ritter has said they have tens of thousands. I don't know if it's tens of thousands, but they have many, many thousands of soldiers fighting in Ukraine right now. So, and, probably a worse note is, you hear that these people, these crazy people, Ursula von der Leyen and Biden and, Klaus Schwab and all these people that are very much in control of everything. They say that they have to support Ukraine at any cost. But what they're really saying is that they have to support their global dominance at any cost. And for a lot of them, that means implementing this Great Reset. It just means having domination over finance, having military domination, having total control over everybody, all your decisions, everything you do. That's mostly what they're talking about. And so what we can expect, more of an attempt to implement the Great Reset. And a lot of that might mean bio attacks. A lot of people are not talking about any kind of bio weapons lately, not so much, because it's this explosion attacks are what we're talking about now, bombs and whatnot. But I don't know, winter's coming, and they were doing, bio experiments all this time, so you might just see something, and we shouldn't be left being caught with our pants down, because there might be a bio attack, even though there's not much you can do about it. But of course it would probably be used here in Belarus or in Russia. And when Russia found these plans, as you know, of some of these biolabs, and I think Ukraine said they had 36 bioweapons labs, and Victoria Nuland, I think she had mentioned 30. I don't know if it was if Ukraine said 46, or anyway, they had a lot of biolabs. It only takes one, so it doesn't matter really how many. But amongst these papers, one of the plans was to use either chemicals or biological agents in the water supplies, and use avian, and they did use avian, birds. They infected birds, and these birds infect fowl and things like that, and like chickens and whatever things you're going to be using for food supplies. And of course they've done this in China. You know that. You can't be dumb and think that these things are coming out of nowhere and just kind of appearing in nature, out of a bat or whatever, and that's all been acknowledged anyway, where a lot of these viruses are originating. So you can maybe, and hopefully not, but you can maybe expect that sort of thing coming in the future. But I have to also, again, I forgot last time, because actually it does help, I notice, to tell you to subscribe, get more subscriptions. I guess that might help me. Subscribe, maybe put a like, that would be great. I don't know if that matters, if you like it or not. Put a hate, I don't know if you can put a hate. I guess they don't mention how many people hate your videos anymore. I don't know. So I guess you can only put a like now. Maybe they ought to just get rid of that thumbs down signal there, because I guess it's they don't show it anyway. Maybe it's only for the YouTube staff to look at how many people hate your videos. I don't know. So, but most important is subscribe, and thanks again for watching. And you can make comments. I think some of these comments are great. A lot of people are putting in some really good things, and I appreciate it. Well, the last thing I might want to add is what our attitude maybe should be, or what attitude you might have about what's going on in the world today. And it seems to be like a fight. It's a fight, obviously. I'm sure you might see this, and if you don't see it this way, I don't know, maybe you're sleeping, or maybe you're on a different planet or whatever, but it's we're at the beginning possibly of a revolution. And a lot of time with a revolution, before a revolution, preceding a revolution, there might be a fight, just like the American Revolution. But a revolution is just a turning over, as you know. It doesn't have to be with a fight, but it obviously is a fight. And like a lot of these people, like what was his name? This crazy guy that used to be the Prime Minister of Norway, and he's the leader, supposedly leader. All he is a front man of NATO. Stoltenberg, who's nothing but a puppet anyway of the U.S. Because the U.S. runs NATO. Obviously, everybody knows that. It's just an extension, of their own military power using their puppet states. So you do what the U.S. tells you to do. But anyway, it's the way I see it is that this is a fight between the domination of arrogant narcissists. It's not just these leaders like the U.S. presidency. It doesn't have to be Joe Biden. It's the presidency itself, the U.S. government, as you see Nancy Pelosi, any of these people. And it has nothing to do with the American way. And that's one reason why a lot of Americans, of course, are all against this, because this isn't the American way. It's for example, the Monroe Doctrine. Does that tell you to go and mess around in different hemispheres? It was supposed to be, the Monroe Doctrine was to say, well, this is our hemisphere, and you stay out of it, and we'll stay out of your hemisphere. But as far as I'm, concerned, it doesn't look like Ukraine is in the U.S. hemisphere. So, but they seem to think it is. So I guess the hemisphere of the U.S. extends all around the world to include Asia. So Taiwan is in the U.S. hemisphere. So, but anyway, you have this fight between. It's actually like a fight between good and evil. And now, as much as you don't want to hear that, anybody in the United States, Putin seems to be on the side of good, of rationality, of equality, equality of nations, non-interference from one government to the next. The USA has to interfere with every government. You do what we tell you to do, or else there will be dire consequences. Will cause terrorist attacks and overthrows, a regime change in your country, and but Putin did it somehow. Somehow it's always Putin. They obviously, you see what's happening in the Ukraine, as in anywhere. The United States creates conditions that causes Russia, in order to protect itself, to take certain actions. Like you get a bunch of crazy people in Ukraine that vows that they want to destroy Russia, and if you're not, like I say, if you're not jumping, you must be Russian, and funding Nazis with swastikas on them, seeing as Russians are the new Jews. This is all obvious. This is undeniable stuff now. So, but you have, Putin. He's proposing a system of equality and non-interference of nations, sovereign rights, and hopefully human rights. So how can you have, any kind of a leader supporting human rights if they're not if they don't have sovereign rights of their country, you know? And you look at like this Great Reset. Do you think they're out for your good? You know, you will own nothing and be happy. Tear everything to pieces and build back better. You know, that's what you're seeing now, this destruction of the world, destroying all the systems, destroying buildings, destroying everything to build back better. You know, you might have your own take on this, you know, but building back better, I mean, you know, that was old Joe Biden's you know, campaign slogan. And what does that mean? Think about it. Build back better. So, anyway, I think it was Earl Grey on Foreign Agent that he was saying, I don't know what his exact words were, but I'm of the same mind as he is, that it's apparent that Putin, at least, is becoming the leader of the free world. And as history will judge, you know, you look at, say, some of the philosophy of Vladimir Putin and compare it with some of these leaders in the United States. You know, Joe Biden, terrible, terrible, terrible. Trump is not that bad. Trump is not perfect either. Well, Putin's not even perfect, but I'll tell you what, he's a lot closer than any U.S. president I've seen in quite a while. So that's just my opinion. You can accept it. You can hate it. I'm sure there'll be people out there that hates it. So I'll try to delete all your nasty comments and insults when they pop up. So next time, bring it on.